Welcome to Techbuds podcast number 8. Today, our guest, our friend Nick Palladino, is on the pod. Start us off. Nick, who are you? What do you do? Give us a little background. Elevator's pitch.
Absolutely. So obviously my name is Nick Palladino. I grew up in Portland, Oregon. Spent the majority of my 20s actually traveling around quite a bit the United States. Spent a few years in Los Angeles, Hollywood specifically. Spent a few years in Miami, Florida. Spent 2 years here so far. Just my main business there then was modeling, so I know we're gonna jump into that a little bit. So
oh no, for sure, we're gonna nail right off the gate. We're gonna nail you with the modeling questions.
I'm excited for it. I haven't talked about it really my past in quite a long time, so I'm open to it and excited for this podcast with you guys.
Dude, thank you. I appreciate it. I just feel like there's so many people out there that, like, especially guys that you see model, like, they don't seem like normal people to me. You know what I mean? And like, you being your friend for a long time, like, you're just a normal guy. But how did your modeling like career start? Like, when did you realize, like, yo, I'm handsome enough to model?
Yeah, I'm better looking than everyone else.
I've never had that yet.
Dude, I'm far from that. Nick's a good looking
yeah,
dude,
of course.
man.
I appreciate that. So I played competitive soccer growing up, and I think I was 14 or 15 years old playing on my competitive soccer team. And actually, one of my teammates, he was modeling at the time. He was doing local stuff with Adidas and Nike, because this was when I was living in Oregon, and obviously the Nike headquarters is out actually in Beaverton, which is where I grew up. So there's a lot of local work for athletic-based stuff out there, and basically what I did is I had my parents submit pictures of me. And I remember the specific pictures. It was the pictures at my brother's high school graduation were the photos they submitted. And I ended up submitting it to a couple different agencies out in Oregon, and one of them got back to me. A couple weeks after that, I went in. They basically, what they'll do is they'll measure all your measurements. They'll take your measurements to make sure that you fit the standards.
All that stuff?
They'll do height, they'll do waist, they'll do shoulders, because specific shoots will require you to fit in like a certain suit size. So that's a big thing, is they'll make sure that you're not lying, because a lot of people will fabricate their numbers. A lot of people will lie about their height. That's a huge thing.
If you're under 6 foot.
If you're under 6 foot, basically, if there's something called a comp card, which is what you used to give to clients when you go in, and if it said 6 foot on there, it's almost guaranteed they're under 6 foot. That was like a thing. If it's 6 foot, they're under 6 foot. But yeah, so basically, my first ever photo shoot I remember was with a company called Fred Meyer's. If you guys aren't from the Pacific Northwest.
I lived in Seattle. I know.
Yeah.
Shopping center.
Yeah, so it was like a Target, I would say, but localized to, I think, the Pacific Northwest. And this was when I was in high school. I think it was my sophomore year, and it was like $150 for the first shoot. And I was so freaking excited for that, because at the time I didn't have a job. I was too young to actually get like a job anywhere else. So for me to get that paycheck, $150 for a 20-minute photo shoot, it was pretty sweet.
What was it for exactly? I know Freddie Myers, but product or what?
It was,
I wonder if I've seen you.
it was basically like stuff that I'm wearing now, is all their clothes, like flannels, jeans, and it was just one outfit for their weekly catalog. So they do like a weekly deal catalog with, because they sell food too, so they have like their food section, and then they have their fashion section, which I was in that.
It was good. I've probably seen you in there, because I remember shopping there all the time.
Yeah, so they
Our
became...
age gap is probably exactly where I would be seeing you.
Yep. No, so many people would bring the newspapers to school, because that's where they came out, and they would like cut them out pictures of me. But that was a consistent client of mine throughout my whole high school career, which was freaking amazing.
Freddie Myers?
Yep, Fred Myers.
Clout with the ladies in high school.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. And another thing was, I know we talked about this before, but Tumblr, like I didn't have a Tumblr, but that was another reason why I kind of started.
Yeah, we're going to dive into that a little bit. So we've known Nick for a couple of years now, but long story short, Ricky brought him here to Arizona. We all were like, who's this model guy? So we've all done our research, of course. So I've been scrolling before, and I've just, I've seen Nick on Tumblr. And I remember Tumblr boys, Tumblr girls were like a trendy thing back in the day. You have to have like a specific modelly look, honestly, to be on it. And I've clicked on Tumblr, and it's not really that big of a thing anymore. But you'll go back and see people posting Nick Palladino with hundreds, thousands, millions of likes, views. And that's where I kind of started like laughing a bit, because you can even scroll down to Nick's older Instagram posts.
Yeah.
And you see some chicks I follow, whatever now. liking that shit back in the day. And it's just funny to me that like you were one of those Tumblr people, which I feel like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of them now today, they really aren't even a thing.
No, it's
to even have someone on a podcast.
Did those people transition to OnlyFans? A lot of them.
I don't know what happened. It like converted over to Tumblr, then big on Instagram, because I remember the Tumblr thing was first, and then Instagram came up, and I don't know where they're at now. Probably OnlyFans or TikTok.
You kind of did the same thing, but you transitioned into YouTube, of course.
Yeah.
Right? You went. Obviously Instagram route after. Well, Tumblr really wasn't you, right? You weren't posting on Tumblr.
I didn't even know it was.
More people sharing pictures and model pictures of you.
Like,
what were the captions even? Like handsome guy or
it was like
stuff like that, right? Just weird random stuff.
And that's going back to that about the high school thing. That's kind of what I wouldn't say I was like popular, but that definitely like came to that was a big thing in high school, like the Tumblr thing. Everyone knew about it. And that's, at the time, that was when I only had Facebook. And I remember I maxed out my friends, which was, I think, 5,000 was like the limit or something like that. Yeah. So, yeah, to kind of the whole high school thing, that was the gist of it. It was interesting, yeah, for sure. And then after high school is when I started getting agencies in different states. So that's when I started really traveling around, because you can't do much when you're in high school still, like for modeling. And it wasn't like I wasn't making a ton of money either. Yeah. So it wasn't like it was worth to like drop out and go model full time. Yeah. If you're comfortable asking, how much was the biggest paycheck you got back in the day for modeling? First time you saw it and you're like, shit, maybe I could do this full time. Absolutely. It was Nike. So the thing with modeling is you get paid for the majority of your paycheck comes from the usage the company's using your imaging for. Yeah. So you get like a small day rate. Like for example, I'll do a job for $1,000. The day rate's $150 or $200, but the $800 or whatever comes from the usage of what they're going to use it for. Is it going to be a billboard? How long is it going to be on there? Is it going to be for social media? Is it going to be for a commercial? And this specific one was for Nike e-com. So whenever you go onto Nike.com, I would be one of their models on there. They shot out in Chicago at the time, and it was $2,500 a day, but they would book you for 5 days straight. So it'd be 12,500 was the biggest one that I had. And that was when I was 2015, I believe. So yeah, I was about like 23 or 24 years old. That's a lot of money to be making in 5 days. And the crazy thing is when it's e-com work, and e-com's, like I said, the website stuff, is they will continue to use the same models. So some models are there once or twice a month. And if you think about that, twice a month, that's $24,000 a month. And that's where a lot of the people can make their money. It's not necessarily like the glamorous stuff, like a billboard that's going to pay a lot of people out. It's the consistent work that's like website stuff. So it's not glamorous or anything like that. You're standing there for 8 hours a day. I got sick both times shooting for this company, for shooting for Nike, because of how strenuous it was. Like no movement whatsoever. If you moved, you had to restart the whole thing. Then you'd have the stylist come and like move every single wrinkle out of the way. Prep work before you go into a shoot? Like for Nike, are you eating super clean the couple days before? Like, is there a lot that goes into it? So me specifically, I always try to do that. I always try to like tighten up as much as possible, I guess is the best explanation like the water for it. Type stuff, yeah, right? I did that for my personal thing, but for the most part, these e-com ones, it's all based on your size and measurements, because half the time it's unrecognizable e-com, which will cut it off at your nose and down. So half the time it's unrecognizable. That's what it's, so you can't even tell who's shooting it. It's more for your physique. More physique and measurements. So they'll take, I know Nike was very particular about it, and that's actually why I stopped working for them, is because I continue to put on size, and I no longer like fit their exact measurements. So it's mainly measurements, not so much like how you're looking, like are you super shredded? Yeah. And that's a huge misconception with it, is like a lot of the shoots that I did that were high paying did not involve like my body really. It was just like I said, like the e-com stuff or the big companies that would just have a huge budget. That's awesome. So another thing I kind of want to jump into was when you got older, more into the model scene, I should say. Mm-hmm. What was your most exciting shoot to this day? I know you've done a bunch of stuff with guests before, which I know a couple of shoots that comes to my mind that we could probably bring up. Yeah. But I want to know, without bringing that up, what is the one of your favorites? Because we've seen the journey along the way. We've seen absolutely. A couple of your shoots. Off the top of my head, the one where I went to Mykonos, Greece for 3 days and I shot with like 5 or 6 other influencers. It was not necessarily the shoot, but just the entire trip. It was fully paid for. The itinerary there was insane. They had us at all these restaurants, all these clubs, and the brand paid for it. And it was with like Mariano DeVaio, Nick Bateman, Tony Moffat. So there was a lot of like big, way bigger influencers than me, and they kind of hired me for the specific fitness influencer. That was like kind of my niche in this whole brand shoot. And just because it was in Mykonos, we got to fly in a helicopter. It was a beautiful, awesome trip. Tubing in the ocean. Huh?
I hear it's like really
it's
beautiful
incredible. The most incredible beaches, I think, personally,
I would second that. That's the craziest place I think I've ever been.
Yeah.
Like the views, the beaches, the water. Like I remember swimming out there, like you're seeing fish, like dude, you're 35 feet deep, and it's crystal clear. No one can explain that. Like it's like swimming in a giant swimming pool.
Yeah.
It's really cool. But that whole vibe out there, all the people there, like super, super beautiful men and women, and just like the clubs and the vibes. It's just like, I can totally see why that was
exactly. Yeah, people eating dinner at like midnight. It was just a completely different atmosphere out there. And like, granted, there's probably some more beautiful places. Like I know Mykonos is more of like a party town now. At least I assume, but I freaking loved it.
That's why I hear about it.
Yeah. But I loved it. It was awesome. But yeah, the guest shoot was really fun too with Jen Selter.
Who's that?
I remember that one.
Yeah,
I remember that one.
That was a cool one because I got notified. Oh, and another one too.
Yeah, she was like the first one that popped on Instagram with the fitness, big butt.
Yep, exactly. Like one of the very first ones, like years and years ago.
I remember I was like, people could do this and make a career out of this.
Exactly.
And now
Nick did a little one-on-one guest shoot with her.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool little shootout. And
Did you get the digits?
No, you guys know me. I'm not the most social person, so I talked to her a little bit, but I didn't get to that point of talking to her. But she was awesome. She was really cool. She had her assistant with her. She had like her hairstylist and everything like that.
Dude,
so
she's big time. She's big time.
She had like 10 million followers at the time, and she was super down to earth.
Right?
New York, I think. At least right now, we're in Miami. She travels around. Yeah, she was cool.
Yeah, you guys look good together, like a little, like
little couple,
fitness couple. But
couple.
like that, just in itself, like just the opportunity, like in the female side of things, like she's such a big name, you know. What's the difference, do you think, on that shoot? Like, you know how much you got paid.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about the NBA, WNBA, and everyone says all this.
I really want to talk about this. Yeah.
Tell me how much of a pay gap there is between you and Jen on that shoot.
Yes. So just because of her following, I know she got at least 5x what I got paid, but she also had some criteria that she had to check off with social media. She had to post a certain amount for guests, and I didn't have to. Mine was strictly like I was just going there for the shoot and kind of just to be a prop in a sense. The main shoot was about her, so I got paid like a couple grand for that shoot, which was great. It was an 8-hour shoot. Like I said, the
experience you'll never get.
Good exposure.
Exactly. The crew was incredible. I mean, I love shooting with guests. They're one of my longest clients, so I have nothing bad to say about them. So just being able to get invited out there and shoot with her was incredible. But the pay gap in general for modeling, females tend to get paid a lot more, and it's justified because you got to think, just like the NBA and the WNBA, it's what's bringing in more money. There's a lot more brand and advertisements. The female-based advertisements generally bring in a lot more, like the makeup campaigns. They're going to attract a lot more money for whatever company they're shooting for. So it's justified for them to get paid a little bit higher than guys. But yeah, I mean, and a lot of times the guys can be props too, where you're not even the main character. Like for me, I was just there and they paid me for my rate for just being there, and it was mainly about Jen and the clothing, the female clothing. Yeah, and it happens a lot. Like, yeah, they need like just guys out there, but the center of attention is the female for sure.
It makes sense.
Oh, it does make sense for sure. I just feel like there's so many niches that are like the opposite, where it always feels like the argument is like the women need to have like step up the pay gap. There's always a pay gap.
I mean, you have these like feminists who are always like bitching about like, oh my god, the
100%.
WNBA, and then who did that skit? They're like, name one WNBA player.
Yeah.
Name the WNBA team in your hometown, and like no one can.
I feel the same way because I can probably name some Victoria's Secret models that are famous. Yeah. I obviously knew who Jen Selter was, before you even mentioned her.
Yep.
She has you go on the internet and look at stuff. Like I know, like my fiance will see that stuff. She can name off tons of female models. Right. Dude, before meeting you, like, dude, there's not one damn name. And I know a couple names from you.
From
like,
me, from my
dude
friends,
from, like Giorgio Armani, like that guy, like obviously like recognize. If you saw him, you'd be like, oh yeah, he's recognizable. But dude, you don't know his first name.
No.
I don't know any names.
Yep.
Isn't that crazy?
That's Nick Palladino.
Yeah,
there we go.
know Nick Palladino for sure.
So, so you were making pretty decent money with modeling. What kind of transitioned you into? Because now you do, a lot of people don't know, real estate, house flipping. That's kind of more of your genre. Yeah, you are doing modeling stuff on the side, here and there, but definitely your main focus is more investments and long-term stuff. So, what made you make that transition? If you were making decent money from modeling, what made you want to switch?
Yeah, I love to talk about that. So I wasn't making a ton of money modeling. I think my biggest year, taking out like any of the brand deals, because there's a lot of like subcategories with modeling where people make a ton of money, especially now with like OnlyFans and stuff like that. A lot of my friends that modeled are now making ridiculous amount of money from other sources that can kind of like spewed from modeling. But I think I made my biggest year was probably like 50,000 from modeling alone.
And what sucks is you live in LA because you have to be stationed out there, which is expensive.
So the cost of living was really expensive as well. And that's when I when I lived in Miami and I lived in Los Angeles was when I was doing it pretty much full time. And when I say full time, like as a full time model, it can be like even 1 to 2 times a week. But for the most part, it wasn't super busy for me. So that's when I started my online coaching, which was like a personal training where I created meal plans and workout plans for people, which a lot of my clients came from social media, came from modeling. So although it wasn't directly related to modeling, that made me money as well. Exactly. Same with brand deals on Instagram and stuff like that. I made quite a bit of money from that during the social media stuff. But basically, to answer your question, I bought a rental property out here in 2019, and I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and they were just too expensive to buy properties out there. So I bought one out here because basically all you guys were living out here. You, Ricky, you guys were all living in one big house, and I knew Ricky from 2017 from when we met. So I started just making more and more trips out here. I started buying more rental properties. I added another one in 2020, 2 in 2020, and it just became, I was just back and forth so much. I had some personal issues with a past relationship, and I really had nothing holding me in Los Angeles anymore. I was like, the cost of living is way too much for what I can be doing basically anywhere. I loved Arizona at the time. All my properties were out here at the time, so I was spending more time out here. COVID hit, everything was locked down, and I just ended up picking everything up one day in my Scion TC at the time, whatever I can fit in that car with a huge dent on the side of that car. I'm surprised I made it here, and just grabbed everything I could and moved out here. So I had some affiliation with the whole real estate market from my rentals, but I was not an agent. We were not flipping houses. So it was a difficult transition, but I would say like the people and the support I had out here made it as clean as possible for sure.
Yeah, it was a good time to be buying properties out here.
Yeah,
too.
we literally we started really full-time flipping houses last year, 2020. I think we did a total of 13. The biggest one we had was the big Paradise Valley house that we sold for, we made $380,000 on a 6-month project. So that was when it was like, you can't even make that amount of money modeling unless you're like the top 0.5%. So I was like, wow, this is wild. So
got rid of the Scion.
Yeah, I got rid of the Scion immediately. It was a big gap. So the Scion TC that had a huge dent on the side that was a stick shift, and then I went and Justin over here convinced me to get a GTS, and I'm so glad he did.
It convinced yourself. I let you drive mine, and then, dude, you should have seen this guy smile.
Yeah,
I let him drive my GTS, and it was all done and shit like that.
Right.
He was fucking amped. He's like, I could nothing think about it, and then we found him that one, and then you bought it, and oh my God.
It was like meant to be. It was like exactly what I wanted, and
Did
Justin.
you feel a little more like? For instance, for me, I know one day if I'm in a Ferrari or something that's my own, I'm gonna be like, this feels good.
It's something about like having your own. Yeah, it was
car,
an incredible feeling.
Like, yeah, you can get a dope house. It does mean something else, but for some reason, a car is like special to me, especially. So, did it have any effect when you first sat in that car? Because I know that's a big jump from a Scion
to.
And did you feel like that? Holy shit! I kind of made it.
Yeah, it kind of takes you to the next level, like not from like a cockiness standpoint, but like it makes you like, you hold yourself accountable a little bit more. You feel a little bit more confident going in the meetings. That was a big reason why I didn't have the Scion. Like, you guys know me, I don't spend a lot of money. I probably would have it right now if I wasn't doing real estate and had to go to all these meetings and stuff, which I'm glad I don't. But it made me feel really good. It made me feel like I kind of leveled up in a sense. And the biggest reason why I was like holding off on that was like, I was just like, I don't want to have a monthly payment. I have my car paid off right now. But with what I do with not only social, but with real estate, like having a nice car, it paid for itself 100%.
Yeah. Especially you're on like the traditional side.
Yeah, the traditional.
Well as the investing side.
Yeah.
So traditional side, if you're an agent, you can't be pulling it in some
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a specific story that I have. A week after I bought my GTS, I went to go look at a house for myself, and there was an open house going on. The agent that was listing the property was at the open house, and I would have never had talked to, like, I would never have like initiated a conversation with this listing agent, but he saw my car and he started talking to me about my car and what I do. I ended up getting his phone number. We ended up actually like talking a little bit about the specific house, and he gave me so much information about what it would take to lock up this deal, what I needed to do, what the seller's looking for. I ended up putting an offer on that house, and it didn't work out, but I ended up making $10,000 on the deal, which is a whole different story. But the more of the story, if I didn't have that car, we would have never had that conversation. So right then and there, that car made me $10,000, and I know it's made me much more than I think I bought it for like 77,000 or something, and it's
Good deal.
yeah, it was a good deal. I sold it for 85, I think, with a cracked windshield
I think
on
it was
it.
beautiful.
Made
I
profit.
miss
It
that
was
thing.
awesome.
Made
I miss
profit
seeing that
and-
thing rolling around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
made profit, put 15,000 miles on the car, which is, I drove that thing to
Threw a
LA.
sexy little wing on there.
Yeah, I threw a wing on
Looking
there.
good.
Yeah, it had a couple of repairs on it, but still made money on it, and it was an
I
incredible
remember you
experience.
even saying now. I remember you saying this maybe a year, 2 years ago. You have a Tesla now.
Yep.
Got rid of the GTS. I remember you saying that same sort of reason though. You wanted your Tesla because you thought pulling up in the GTS was a little weird sometimes.
Yeah, it depends on what I would be doing. So any traditional real estate stuff, pulling up in the GTS made sense to me. On the flipping aspect, out of respect,
Yeah.
like I just felt a little bit weird pulling up into a GTS, like with my contractors and everything like that. They're all awesome. I have a great relationship with them, but I also knew like certain things in certain meetings, it was better to not pull up in that car. And I ended up getting the Tesla for that reason, is like that was a small reason, but I just needed, like, I was driving the crap out of my GTS, and it started to stress me out. I was like, all right, this is like too many miles on it, too many
Ceramic brake.
repairs.
I remember the ceramic brakes.
ceramic-
You were stressing out of that.
I remember you would literally not stop for the long. I'd be in your damn car.
Run
Ready
a
for
couple
this?
yellow lights because I
got
didn't
a
want to
story.
stop.
Yeah, run yellow lights, whatever the case may be. I just remember him in the GTS. Dude, this guy would literally start slowing down before a light, let his foot off the gas, let the car coast.
You didn't want to use
So he
the
wouldn't
brakes?
press the brake because it's ceramic.
You know
brakes
why?
to
Because
replace.
I bought the car, and then these guys are like, yeah, to replace those, it's going to be like, how much, 10 grand? And I was
More.
freaking like, holy
More.
moly. So yeah, that was a big thing, but luckily I didn't have to replace that.
Yeah, his car came with like special. What was it? The calipers.
Yeah, they're carbon
cer-
ceramic.
Carbon ceramic.
It was a
calipers.
full upgrade,
Which
that
is a
car.
rare
Yeah.
model.
Yeah, most of them
mine-
don't have that, and
Mine
his
did not
did,
have ceramic.
and it looked sick as hell.
It was
Yeah.
that and the
But
solar
that
beam
issue,
yellow.
it's
The
20
yellow
grand.
was, the yellow
Dude,
was like 8
yeah.
grand.
His MSRP on his car was like 27,000 more
Yeah.
than what my GTS
Yeah, so it
was.
had all the
It
upgrades.
was
And
beautiful.
I had
Beautiful
tons
car.
of upgrades on mine. I had white interior. Like mine was like
You had red
$167,000
seatbelts, right?
spec.
I had
Red
red
seat.
seatbelt,
Oh, yeah.
Alcantara.
Full
Yeah.
carbon.
I
It
can
was
remember
dope.
that
It was a
thing.
good deal. So what's the deal? What's next? Like what's your game plan? I know you want a Huracan.
I want one bad, yeah.
I know you do, and I know you're being smart about watching the car market.
Yep.
What have you learned from having the GTS you're going to apply to Huracan?
I need to be aware of how much I'm driving these cars too, because I drive a lot. I drive about 30,000 miles a year. And one big thing with me is even when I had my Tesla, I found myself like going to my GTS. And I need to remember that these are supercars. Yes, they're meant to be driven, but not like to absolutely everywhere I go. So what I want to learn, what I'm gonna do when I get another supercar, I'm gonna get one. I don't know when, but it'll be eventually. So just be more cautious of how much I'm driving it. If it's somewhere where I don't need to drive it, then I'll just take my Tesla, and it makes a little bit more sense. That Tesla saved me a ton of money the last year that I've had it.
Yeah.
But yeah, also I have you guys. I don't know much about the car market, but you guys have helped me a ton lately. I'm
coming down right now.
Yeah.
I'm waiting too.
Talking to you guys about it. I know, like, I have faith in you guys that you guys, once you guys see something that, you know, I'll pull the trigger on it for sure, but I don't know enough about cars to justify it.
I almost sent you a Huracan this morning.
Yeah?
And I didn't.
Yeah, Nick Powell, perfect
almost
world.
did.
What Lamborghini? What color? What interior?
perfect
I want to hear
world.
perfect spec. You find one on the market right now.
It'd be an SVJ for sure, like an
Okay.
Aventador. It would be, I don't know, probably a green one.
Green?
I'd get
Nice, bright green?
a wing
Okay.
on it, and I really haven't thought much more about it. My eyes been set on the Huracan because of the price point for a while, but
So why the Huracan though?
price point.
And like the looks it
Oh,
gets,
why not something else?
Yeah, why
It's been a
Huracan?
dream of mine since I was a kid. Like, I never thought
It's that
that it would
poster kind of
actually be,
people have.
that I actually thought it can relish in real life. But ever since I got my GTS, it makes you realize, like, anything's really attainable. And like, the more and more you grow as a person, and wherever it may be, a business or whatnot, like, things become a lot more attainable. So it's actually become like a realistic thing that can
slow
happen.
progression over time. You don't really notice.
So yeah, exactly. You don't notice how much you have progressed until you really, really take a step back and look.
Yeah.
And I just wanted a Lamborghini when I was younger, and then I started looking at, like, actual Lamborghinis, and like the Huracan was what made the most sense. Like, return on my investment too. Like, I want to make sure I'm getting a good deal, but I also want to make sure, like, with the social media and stuff too, I feel like that's a good price point, and also it's like flashy enough as well.
It's gonna help your channel and everything.
Exactly.
Like, you definitely you got use out of your GTS, like you said, not only with meeting people, the connections, but you also made content with that car quite a bit.
It's crazy how much content you can make with a car, and how good of a marketing symbol it is.
It sounds
really
cheesy
does.
sometimes, but the shit's effective.
Yeah,
Like,
Isn't
you have
it so
to
annoying?
absolutely. Yeah, it's
Like,
crazy.
you can do 500 real estate transactions and drive around a 3 Series BMW and have 20 million in the bank. And then you had done one deal in your entire life and roll up in a Huracan, and people are kissing your feet.
It really helps the social aspect of almost if like it shows that you're successful.
It's
at
the
what you do.
credibility. It's huge
credibility
Exactly.
aspect of it, and it's wild because, like, the Tesla is just like it's a daily that no one really looks twice at. But I absolutely love that thing. And when I had my GTS, it was a complete opposite. I had people stopping me in the parking lot, and the GTS is not even like a super car. So like a Lamborghini I can't even imagine. Like, I know Ricky gets stopped a ton, especially when you have
That's why he's got him.
When you have a dope version of that car, like, you know, that's where it really gets crazy. You know what I mean? Like, you see a stock Huracan, like, I like, me personally, I look at a stock Huracan, that's a stock Huracan.
Yeah.
Like, that guy's done something.
The average person, though, they don't
don't
fucking
care.
know.
Yeah,
It's
I'm with Ricky
average
on that.
chick?
Like, I wouldn't really
The average
know.
chick,
No,
especially.
average chick,
If we're being real.
she don't know. She don't know what the hell it is. You know? But
Justin would be like, it's stock.
I'm like, yeah, dude, that's a rear-wheel drive one.
Yeah.
Like, that's not that cool.
Like,
But
I don't
you
care.
see
I
one
want to be passenger seat.
you know, 3-piece wheels. You see it, you know, something modded. I go, holy shit! Like, that is, you know, sick. But one thing to talk about is, like, when you go to the gas station, I know this with the cars I've had, like, you think in your mind, like, you're gonna buy a Lambo, you buy something dope or exotic, and you're like, dude, all these girls are gonna talk to me. Dude, I've talked to more guys at the gas station because of the damn car you have versus girls.
the dude magnet more.
It is.
Dude magnet.
It is 100%. I think every single one of my conversations about the car was with a guy rolling down their windows. I'm like, okay, cool, this will be a girl. And then some guy's like, how much you buy that for? And I was like, oh, perfect.
That was like how you met Rick. You said you were chasing him down in his GTR.
Yeah.
Dude, but I was a fanboy for the GTR.
Right.
Same thing
that's what I'm
though.
saying,
Yeah,
though.
it
It's
is.
crazy how much your life has changed
Right.
because of the
Just
car.
because
That
if you
one
didn't have
specific.
that car, he wouldn't have found
If
you.
Rick
and you
was
guys
in
wouldn't have found each
a
other.
Honda right there, you would never even.
Exactly.
Nothing
I think
about
about that so much when I'm like with my GTS. That's the thoughts that I had. I was like, I knew your story. I was like, if he didn't have that GTR, you would not be, either of you would be where you're at today. And it's incredible to me. So I don't know if you guys are thinking about justification for buying a supercar, maybe that's what you need. Like the amount of stories that you hear from crazy.
Yeah.
And like
I
you
think
said,
so,
it does
too.
help motivate you, confidence. Everything does help along the way. Like it does pay for itself.
Sometimes it's good to put, I think, a little financial pressure. Don't be completely stupid.
Yeah.
I agree.
But level yourself up, or you get a little complacent, especially in real estate.
Very
You have
good point.
One deal close, get, I don't know, 50, 100K. You could just chill for the next 6 months.
I
But
agree.
if you have this nice car and you have some other
Very good point, yeah.
responsibilities, it kind of sets the bar a little
I agree.
higher for yourself personally, and it keeps you going. And
Exactly.
I like that. It's a very good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. When I had that M4 and I traded in for that GTS, I bought that GTS, found a deal on a Z06. I had this GTS and Z06, most money I've had out in fucking cars in my entire life. Two of the most expensive cars I've ever had at the same time, and 3 months in a row after I had that GTS were my, to this day, most successful months. I worked harder. My different businesses, I put way more effort in. And
You want to keep them. It's funny that sounds, but it's like
now you got
Kind of
something.
it kind of puts you in a
gotta keep
corner
up
in a
with that
sense. Like
lifestyle.
yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't, and it's not that it's like a big payment or anything like that. It's just like it changes your mindset
Yeah.
because now you don't want to get rid of it because you don't want to lose it. Obviously, you sold your car for profit. Like I've done the same thing. Like it makes sense. We also are here. Like we don't care in a sense, but also there's a little part of you, like me specifically. I'm like, dude, I'm itching to get into another dope car.
Yeah.
Because like back in the day, like I know people would come to the office like, oh, Nick with the GTS, and that's Justin with the purple GTS or whatever the car was. It's like you kind of like get association to it, and it gives you the credibility.
Yep.
But when you get your next car, what we're gonna do different before is I'm gonna get you on some rallies, and you're gonna see that when you go on car rallies and you surround yourself with people that are at these cars, dude, if you're in a car rally with a bunch of supercars, dude, if you can take a week off of whatever your life is, jump in your supercar, like you're doing something
Yeah,
right.
you do. Yeah,
so
yeah.
the networking there, I've met some of the most insane, wealthy, incredible individuals I've ever met. I still have great relationships. We're going to get some on the pod for sure. But there's like so many things that you can do with the car that no one tells you about.
especially with real estate, like when you add those two together.
Dude, you don't leave the Lambo dealership and it goes, get ready, you're going to freaking 10x your business because you're about to make connections with an investor guy that's worth, $700, $800
just
million.
takes one connection.
One conversation, one anything. You know what I mean?
That's how my team lead got into it too. Lenny, he did the car rallies and he's made a ton of money from the connections he's made from specific car rallies just because he had his supercar at the time, whatever it may be. And he absolutely destroys it, yeah. So it's incredible. There's a lot of things.
So you and Ricky Gutierrez, you guys first connected, sounds like social media. You guys were both kind of on the internet.
So yeah.
Then how did it go from that and then you moving out here to like what's your business partnership right now? Kind of how did that whole thing transpire with you guys?
Yeah, Ricky and we met in 2017. I knew him from social media. He actually responded to my message to him with a personalized video, which is like I thought was really cool. So I had bought his course because I was into stock trading at the time. And we always had a relationship around real estate. Like he helped me with my first 2 rental properties, like not from a financial standpoint, but from like, you're never going to feel ready, so now's the time to buy. And that's basically what triggered me to buy my first properties. So we always had a relationship around real estate. And Lenny, who was my real estate agent at the time, because I wasn't an agent, flipped houses. He knew Lenny because Ricky would fund Lenny's deals, like hard money lend on Lenny's deals. So that's how Ricky was involved with flipping. And one day, I think it was 2019 or 20, we found a wholesaler reached out to us with a deal and we didn't know what to do. I reached out to Lenny. I was like, you think this is a good deal? He's like, yeah, I will help you with all your contractors. I'll get everyone in there as long as you let me list the property for a 3% commission. And I talked to Ricky about it. And that's how our first kind of relationship started. We had no LLC or anything like that. Like we didn't even know how we were going to basically split the profits, how we were going to pay for the property. Originally, we were going to go 50-50 on the property. We were each going to pay for half of it. And then we started after a couple more properties. He now funds all the properties. So he's kind of the funding for everything. And I do all the actual like work, the labor, the contracting, the acquisitions of it, the dispositions.
Especially back then, Ricky G didn't have too much experience really in the investing side of real estate.
Yeah.
But
You guys didn't know what you were doing.
None of us did.
he
Yeah.
had money.
No,
he
yeah.
had money, but it's, you kind of were willing to put in the work.
I was, yeah, and
build the
I had the
foundation
time to
for
do
sure.
it, and I had the 2 rentals at the time, so I was kind of familiar with it.
You
But
had
I
a little
mean,
experience,
for me to like say I can comp a property, there's no way. I was still on Zillow, like looking at stuff. So having Lenny there is what helped me, and I mean, having a mentor in anything, I think, is incredibly helpful. I mean, a lot of times you'll have to pay for it. For us, it was a listing fee, but Lenny was the one that kept that deal together. He was the one that kind of persuaded us to do it. And Ricky had the money at the time. I had the time to do it. I was living in LA, so I was traveling out here to keep an eye on the contractors. And that was our first really flip. We made $24,000 on it after commissions and everything. And after that, we didn't touch a flip for a while because we still didn't have the connections out here. Like we didn't have wholesale lists that we were
still living
on.
in LA,
and I was still in LA. Like it was hard.
It's hard to manage a property.
It was difficult. So yeah, the next one was, I think, like when we started last year. So there's a big gap between our first one, and we started working out the details with our actual structure of our business by then. And so when we started doing like 3 to 4 a month is when we had everything in place. But yeah, our first couple was like,
and now
let's just do it. Like we'll figure it out later.
Yeah. Now you've found this place too for us now, right?
Yeah, that's actually why I became an agent.
That we're sitting in. So you've helped them with personal stuff, and now you guys are definitely trying to do as many deals as possible.
Yeah,
keep that rolling. Is that basically what your future is looking like? You
yeah,
want to keep scaling it up, get a couple more Airbnb properties rolling.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been an interesting couple months with the market shift, and it's allowed me to think a lot more about what I want to do in the future. I obviously want to do real estate. For me, with my career, like with me modeling in the past, I never had the only job I had that was required me, like I was on an hourly rate, or it required me to come in at a specific time. I worked at a grocery store when I was 15 or 16. And ever since then, I worked for myself. I never really had any consistent income. Like I never knew what my next month was going to be. So for that reason, I was like, cash flow. That's all I want to focus on. That's why I first originally bought my rental properties, because I want to alleviate some of the stress of the uncertainty moving forward with whatever I was doing. And the cash flow did that for me. So it's still a big goal of mine, is to continue to create cash flow in a form of buying more rental properties or buying Airbnbs. So at the end of the day, the big goal for me is just to continue to stack up rentals and long-term investments in real estate. Short-term, in order to gain capital, is flipping houses, because that's how I get like majority of my capital now, and just continue to roll that over into investment properties, which would probably be Airbnbs right now. I
was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
I own long-term rentals in Jersey, about a dozen of them, but I've never done the short-term thing. Yeah. How's that been going for you? So I have 6 properties. I live in one. I have 4 long-term rentals and 1 Airbnb, which is a short-term rental. And that was launched in February of this year. And it's insane. Like the amount of response I got the very first day of posting that, I thought there was a glitch with Airbnb. I was like, there's no way this is possible. I think I had like $6,000 or $7,000 in bookings the very first day that I launched my Airbnb. And I was like, this can't be true. I remember like going on a walk one night, and I was like, this is blowing my mind. Like, did I just hit like a gold mine here? But that's then the one with the pool. It's on a golf course.
It's back to a park, which is a huge thing. Like the park has been a huge incentive. So like the location I noticed is not a huge deal, but the specific location of like where it's at in the neighborhood. Do you have any specific, like you have a park in the back? Is it back to a golf course? That helps a ton. It attracts a lot more people looking at the listing that way.
It's a great layout for an Airbnb.
Great layout too. I spent a lot of money on that.
Pavers back there, looks clean.
So yeah, I bought that house with the anticipation of Airbnb-ing it, so I knew that like this was gonna be an entertainment house. Like it doesn't have to be laid out for someone like me to live there with like a family. It was strictly for an Airbnb. So it's a one big open 1,800 square foot house with 3 bedrooms on the side, completely open, strictly for like entertainment. So the backyard's all entertainments. Like I have the barbecue, the lights. It's back to a park. So it was specifically for an Airbnb, and I do think that's partly why it's doing quite well. Specific numbers, I think I just looked, and it was from February to now $70,000 gross this year. Profit, I'm still working on that. I'm profiting, but it's not what you guys would think it is, even with like my monthly bills. Like do
you manage it, or?
I manage it all myself, which another big thing, I manage all my rentals. And I think a big mistake that people the barrier of entry for people wanting to buy rental properties. A lot of people get hung up on like, oh, I live out of state, or I can't do it, I don't know who to hire. I always suggest if you can, to try to manage it yourself, whether it be a short term or a long term. Try it yourself, and if it becomes too much, then you hire out. But I've never really had great relationships with property management. So yeah, I
bought my first rental in 2018 in the hood of New Jersey.
Yeah.
For like $80,000. And my partner, he owned 20 over there at the time.
Yeah.
His advice was, dude, self-manage it your first time, see what it's like.
Try it out, yeah.
So I did it, and I mean, it helped that he was over there because he had he had some contractors and some help if I really needed something. But it's totally possible. I mean, I'm living in Arizona, managing a property in New Jersey, and everything went pretty smoothly.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that's a crazy concept.
Yeah.
It's definitely possible.
Yeah, I agree with you. You have to have your systems in place. You have to have your handyman, which I did from our flips. But the property manager is just a middleman. They're still going to hire someone out. Like, it's just they're taking the phone calls or whatever. But I think it's worth the saving 10%.
Text messages for long-term rentals, maybe a month.
Yeah. I mean,
and the Airbnb managers smoke you. They want
20 to 25% is what it is.
So much.
And it's like 8 to 10% on long terms, which is almost even more of a scam long terms.
It is.
Yeah.
Because I think my gross on all my rentals is like $18K a month. And if you're taking 10% of that for having someone manage your LTRs or your long terms, that's what, $1,800 a month?
Especially in Arizona.
And
cash flow.
Yeah, that's the thing. It bottlenecks your cash flow a little bit. And that's why a lot of people they're like, oh, this doesn't make sense to me. And a lot of the times it doesn't make sense because they are taking into consideration property managers. Yes, and there's like a lot of people will need them, but I'm just saying if you're like on borderline and if you think you can manage it, I would try it out yourself.
Yeah.
Save some of that money. And if you can't, then hire out.
He's got now like 30, 40 properties. Him and his wife self-manage all of them.
Wow. That's the biggest portfolio that's self-managed. I think that's really
That's insane.
Yeah, 40. I mean, even then, like they're probably not getting a ton of phone calls every month. If they're LTRs,
it's totally right. It's totally possible. But when you look from a cash flow standpoint,
you got to think how much you're saving. Yeah.
Right, or how much more you're making.
Yeah.
Per se.
Yeah.
And it's really just a few text messages, a few calls to contractors. It's not that much work.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think your cash flow with your Airbnb and like your ROI on it, dude, it's so crazy. It's definitely like open not only my eyes but also our like real little niche of real estate investors. We all kind of hang out together. Like it's kind of like open my eyes to be like, yo, like how cheap can I go find a specific property close to the Cardinal Stadium?
Yep.
Where can I get one in Joshua Tree?
Yeah.
Like where can I get one in Vegas? Like it's opened my eyes to that. And I think because of how popular it is, like one, I would love to have one in Nashville.
Exactly.
For example, it's like, holy crap, you can make so much money compared to an LTR. Like it doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't right now. Yeah. No, I agree with you. And like you said, like to touch on the Nashville thing, it's like you also, like Airbnbs, you also have a vacation rental for yourself.
Dude,
like I have my parents coming next month that I'm letting them, they're staying for free, which is amazing. Like having my parents come and giving them like a free stay is like such a good feeling to me. And like hosting parties. We had a barbecue the other day.
Our staycation giveaway.
Staycation with these guys.
Dude, we had a great night there at your house.
There's awesome. So many benefits to having a short-term rental besides just the cash flow standpoint. Like a big goal of mine is to have one Colorado, Utah, where 3 months out of the year I can block it out and go myself. Like that's another benefit to it. And it's something people don't really think about too much. They get too hung up on the cash flow of it, which is great.
Like I thought about it with my New Jersey stuff, low income, like Section 8 type stuff in the hood, good cash flow, cheap properties. But looking way down the road, will my kids want to take over that mess? Probably not. But if you have 20 sick AirbNBs in all these dope locations around the country, that's something down the road. If they're all paid off, let's say, you can give that to your family and future generations. I kind of think like they could enjoy all these different spots. Like it's a pretty cool concept when you start looking at it that way.
Exactly.
Outside of just the money.
The money aspect of it. Yeah.
It is really cool. One thing that I kind of noticed, like as like not shopping, but looking through properties like I do every day, like I see a lot of different things. The only holdup that I've seen with a lot of these Airbnbs is these HOAs. They don't allow short-term rentals, And these HOAs have, like we've talked about before on the pod, is like if these HOAs want 12-month rentals,
Funny
these
story.
neighbors want it. Like, dude, that kind of is there going to be a bottleneck for all Airbnbs? You know what I mean?
That's a big thing. That's a really good point, and that's another reason why I don't want the majority of my portfolio being short-term rentals for that reason. If there is a reason why we get restricted or just makes it a little bit harder to have an Airbnb or a short-term rental in general, I still do think like long-term rentals are beneficial for that reason. It's a little more of a safety net as well. So yeah, I think I don't have a specific ratio in mind, but I do still want to be heavy in long-term rentals and continue to grow my short-term portfolio, but I never wanted to completely take over my investments because it is up and down. It's very seasonal Airbnbs, and like you said, HOA out in Arizona is a huge thing. So it's like that's one of the biggest things. Is like there's some main things that I look for in Airbnbs. One of them is no HOA. One of them is having a pool in Arizona. So that's like some of the two biggest things for sure.
I bought my primary originally. I was thinking like short-term rental.
Yeah.
Because it's very like entertainment resort style in the back. But
the CCNRs on the
dude,
HOA.
Yeah. So it had a 30-day minimum. So I was thinking, all right, I could do like 30, 60-day, maybe 90-day.
Yeah.
Very, like I said, unique, like desirable yard that people would want if that's what they're looking for. And then I met my next door neighbor, and he's on the freaking HOA board. He's like, the last person that lived here, he would have people over till 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. I'm like, dude, this is not going to work with this neighbor. So then I was looking for a house anyway, and I really loved it anyway.
Yeah,
so it worked out. Yeah. And now I'm on the HOA board, so down the road, I plan to take it over and then eliminating that rule and then possibly ripping it as
you get some good profits from that. Yeah.
But it is in Arizona, I've never seen, like in New Jersey, where I'm from, single family neighborhoods do not have HOAs. Out here in Gilbert,
it's heavy.
75%.
I'd say even more,
It's all female.
They're planned development communities. But then you also get like somewhere that like Palm Springs and stuff where the entire city is cracking down too.
Or Scottsdale even.
Yeah. So you have to, I don't know exactly, but there's just a bigger barrier of entry for Airbnbs now in these certain cities. You have to have a license or something like that. So yeah, that's what I'm a little bit concerned about moving forward too, because it's kind of out of your control in a sense.
What do you guys think from a personal standpoint? Because I'm torn on it both ways. When you're looking at Airbnbs, on one side, you're like, well, if I live in the neighborhood and I own the house and I'm raising a family here, I don't really want a bunch of Airbnbs right around me and all these hooligans coming in every week and making a mess of the neighborhood. But at the same time, I'm a big just let capitalism play out. Like if the neighborhood really turns into that, no one's forcing you to live there.
Yeah.
You could always move. So I'm always kind of torn about regulating it versus completely don't have any regulations and just let the market do its thing.
I thought about that too. If it's your next door neighbor and we're all getting older, we're not partying as much as we used to. But if our 22-year-old selves were in a house right next door on a Wednesday night, dude, I would not want that.
Yeah.
You would not want that where your family's at. But there's also tons of areas and communities that are younger communities. What I think is, as the market shifts too, I think the starter home communities, like those are going to be making nice Airbnbs. Obviously, there's tons of luxury Airbnbs, but the people that live in a luxury neighborhood, they don't want that. But if you're in a starter home Airbnb, you have younger couples in there, they may not care as much as the little higher price points. When you crack that like $600,000, $800,000 range, you have an Airbnb, dude, that family's working their ass off to afford that house,
to live in that neighborhood.
They don't want that Airbnb in there.
Yeah. I think a big thing with that will have to be the specific companies to like do a little bit more digging on. Airbnb does good now. They're pretty strict on, and they're pretty good at calling out parties. So I think it's going to come down to the specific platforms thoroughly investigating the reason for the booking and the guests and stuff like that, because I think that's probably the only way they're going to be able to control that in a sense, is like, because Airbnb is very strict with parties now. Like they'll cancel a lot of bookings, and they have like good, I don't know if it's an algorithm or whatever it may be, but they can generally get an idea on who's going to have a party, if it's a same day booking, if someone's coming from a city down the or somewhere close by, like if it's a local, it's most likely going to be a party, because why are they staying at an Airbnb when they live 15 minutes away? So I've a lot of turn downs from it. Doesn't even give me a choice. Like Airbnb will turn it down. So they're doing better at that, and I think they're going to have to continue to keep an eye on all that because Airbnb is going to be worried about getting shut down for that reason, for inconvenience to the neighbors, disrespect to the neighbors, because it's on both sides. Like, very true from an investor standpoint, you don't really think about that, but you got to think it's a burden for sometimes if you're having a party every night and you're a freaking neighbor, that's got to be tough for 100%.
Sure. I remember I booked an Airbnb, and it just happened to be on my name, and Jake was with me. We did a trip to LA. It was like a car event, and we parked the cars in like the driveway, all crock-eyed. Like, we had to get in there. We were late, and they had cameras, and we had a group of people over. And I remember getting those messages saying, you have way too many people in the house.
Oh my goodness.
This guy was a foreign guy. He was freaking pissed, whole yards. And then probably like almost a year later, Rick and I, like, we went to go book an Airbnb. And I went through it on my app, and it said I couldn't book it.
Oh my!
You were blacklisted.
And then Rick had to book it.
Your whole Airbnb account?
No,
just that house.
That property.
Oh.
It was so weird, and that was the only other incident we've ever had with Airbnb.
Yeah,
but
that was back in like
2019.
Well, I think the rules technically is if you're not a guest, like you can't even, if you have an Airbnb, you go to the bar and you meet some chicks or something, you want to bring them back to the Airbnb, I think technically
you have to
they're not even allowed
notify
in the house.
them.
Property.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Do you think as the one thing I've realized is as the market changes, the housing starting to become cheaper, the market's adjusting. One thing that I've noticed was when you're trying to buy those LTRs, those long-term rentals, you have to get a good deal on the property, because you want to make sure, you're getting a good deal on what renovations you have to do to it, because that's what determines your cash flow, right? Do you think because Airbnbs, you make such an abundance of money, you can be more lenient? So do you think a lot of people in the last 2 years just bought these Airbnbs at whatever the hell price, because it's in Scottsdale, they don't care, they'll come up 50,000 over ask, they're still making money? But how do you think those, what's the game plan for the properties now that are actually becoming good deals? Do you see opportunity, what would make more sense to you, an LTR or an Airbnb, or have an Airbnb and then switch it to LTR? What's the best route?
Yeah. Well, right now I can only really speak for Arizona because I that's where I do all my research. But with where interest rates are and with where purchase prices are, it does not make sense right now to buy a long-term. The cash flow just is not there. You can always force cash flow on a property if you put a big enough down payment. But at the end of the day, a good investment's based on opportunity cost. And if you're putting 50% down on a long-term rental just to force cash flow on it, that's not the best use of your money. So I think right now, Airbnbs or short-term rentals are what people are looking at, because people are running their numbers and it's my most recent purchase I bought was horrible. I wouldn't say horrible mistake, but I'm not cash flowing enough for the opportunity cost that it cost me. And if I were to invest that money into an Airbnb, I probably would have 5x my money. So I think moving forward, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for people looking for short-term rentals, but it also limits the properties that are available, because if you're doing a short-term rental, we just talked about the HOA, we talked about most people are going to look for a pool, so stuff like that, I think those will do pretty well. But from the overall market, I don't think too many people are going to be really looking for either right now until things really settle down.
Yeah, because I feel like there's a lot of people that are out there that are like starting to do well, or whatever the case may be, and they want to get into it and they're not into it. And starting at 0 rental properties, acquiring that one that is number one, a good deal that's going to cash flow, that's going to be a good investment, is crucial. Yep. Because if you didn't have one, and that one that you recently purchased that you're not cash flowing on, you put all that money into, you would that's where a lot of people don't talk about, especially in my opinion, you guys can speak on this too, the last 5, 6, 7 years of the real estate market, dude, it doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah.
From fix and flips to long-term rentals, you're gonna crush.
Yeah.
From the whole line, you're gonna crush because the appreciation is so high. Now that we're actually in a point where not only is the market pulling back, but we're seeing a bunch of institutional buyers come in, the whole home buying experience is going to change. Way the market could be in the next 10 years is completely different than it is now.
Yeah.
Like, what cautions would you advise to someone who's looking for their first LTR or first Airbnb? You know, what's that criteria that you'd be like, no, stay away from this, or if you have the money, wait for X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? Because if you do that first one and it's not solid,
yeah, it kind of puts a bad taste in your mouth for sure. What I've been telling people, it's like, it's not a good time to buy or it's not a good time to sell right now. So like my first piece of advice is, if you don't have to sell, don't sell. If you don't absolutely have to buy, like if you're not itching to get rid of some money right now, I'd sit a little bit longer, because I think more deals will pop up. Right now there's just too much uncertainty, and the peak fear is when uncertainty, I feel like, is the highest, and I don't think we've hit a bottom yet. So like my biggest piece of advice would probably just be patient with everything, patient with purchasing. From an actual number standpoint, I always try to do at least 10% cash on cash return for my long-term rentals. Meaning, on an annual basis, I will take my cash flow from an annual standpoint and divide that by the amount of cash I have invested, and it needs to be at least 10% for it to be like good opportunity cost, because I'm comparing it directly with the stock market, which I think on a macro scale is 9% returns over whatever it may be. I don't know the exact stats. So that's what I like to base my rentals on. Also, when you're buying real estate, you're getting the appreciation over time if you're holding it long enough. Like right now, if you buy now and you sell it next year, you're probably not going to get any appreciation on it. But for the most part, it's a long-term play. You're going to appreciate on. You're also renting it out, so you have your tenants paying all of your mortgage. So it beats out the stock market in that aspect as well, where if you do everything right with a long-term rental or short-term rental, you should never have to pay your own mortgage on it. But 10% is what I like to look for in long terms. Short-term rentals, I don't know. It just has to be.
It's like almost on a per property basis.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to say, because some of them I really like to look for no HOA, bigger lot size, has to have a pool. Ideally a heated pool, but that's specific to Arizona. Like you can go somewhere else and it can be complete opposite criteria. And I don't really have a cash on cash return standpoint. I would say to make a short-term rental worth it, easily above 15%. Other than if not, then just get a long-term one and don't deal with all the ins and outs of Airbnbs. Like my Airbnb is not a full-time job, but it's 15x what all of my long-term rentals are combined. Like it's a lot more. You have to get in contact with your cleaners. You have to make sure everything's clean and nothing's broken. Inventories in stock, all that kind of stuff. Check in, check out, messages with the guests. So for that, it has to be a little bit higher, like 15, 20% all day.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is possible, which is a crazy thing.
As the market changes and it becomes more challenging to do, find deals, like I'm going through it, you guys are going through it too. Yeah. It's more challenging to find deals. The fix and flips are not as potentially as profitable as they were before. What else is on your plate? Do you see yourself like ever not transitioning out of real estate, but like putting that on the back burner for a little while if the market continues to sell off? Or do you have a game plan, or have you even thought about like, is there other stuff that Nick Palladino wants to do that's, different? Because everyone has like goals, aspirations, and dreams. And like, I think a big thing that a lot of people have done in the last 3-4 years, and I've talked to a bunch of people about it, they've chased these opportunities because they're good financial.
Yeah, where the money's at. Yeah,
money grabs.
Exactly.
Quick money grabs. But is there anything out there that you could see yourself doing that really gives that like self satisfaction or dream job or anything like that?
That's a great question. It's probably one of the, that's because I definitely think about it a lot now that like times are slower too. It's like questions pop up in my head where it's like, is this really what I'm meant to be doing? Is this really what I want to be doing? Or is it just because I started in 2020 and it was the great time to start and the money was great? Like I start to question that, and you're absolutely right. Like I don't have anything in mind right now, like a future game plan. Like I do want to continue in real estate, but I do think is this what I really like want to be doing day in and day out? I mean, I love coffee. There's been thoughts of starting a coffee shop strictly from a passion standpoint. I love food. There's been thoughts of like, if you guys are local AZ, there's something called like Salad and Go. Like I've wanted to do something similar to that aspect, like super small menu, super healthy, super cheap, super fast, but like do it like with like turkey burgers or something like that. So that's been a thought too, like really like passion jobs. But I haven't really put too much thought into it. I never really had time to. We were like ripping 3, 4, 5 properties a month for the last year and a half, and that's when my career really changed. So like this is the first couple months where I really sat down with myself and had time to think like what I really want to do. So yeah, it's a great question.
I think a lot of people that have success in no matter what field they do, there's always that like question of, you know, is this what I'm meant to be doing?
Exactly.
Or am I getting the most satisfaction in that? That's where I feel like a lot of people like,
could I be happier doing something else?
Right. And, like the same thing. There's like, just because you are successful at one thing, or you pick something up for a quick money grab, that doesn't mean it's your forever thing. I think a lot of people are like, have like this thing. It's like, oh, now I do real estate. I have to do real estate, because if I stop real estate, people are gonna be like, what's wrong with you?
It's almost a lot of external pressure at that point when you do something and then you're like, change it or whatever it may be.
100%. Yeah. I personally gone through that, owning different businesses, and I stop a business or sell a business and go, oh, you don't want to do that no more. It's like, you want to try to pick something else up that's different. But those businesses involve commercial real estate in one way or another. So that is also another opportunity for you too, to transition into maybe commercial or stuff like that.
I get a lot of questions about that, if we're ever going to transition into that. And I just don't have enough knowledge right now, which is completely my fault. I need to make myself more knowledgeable about commercial real estate. I know one thing, I don't think I want to be a traditional real estate agent full time. And I learned that over the last like year. Like,
I've never wanted to do that.
Yeah, like especially when things are like what they are now. Like you're almost just like, for me, I've never been a salesperson, so I've never been very social. So it's like I noticed that it might probably not the best career for me to be a traditional agent, which is fine with me. I've accepted that. Like I'm not trying to force myself to be a better salesperson, but I still like flipping. It doesn't require. I still really enjoy it. I still go like looking at properties, negotiating the property, the buy and the sell of them. But just being a traditional agent and going to like get leads and stuff like that, I found that to not be something that I want to do like career wise.
I've thought about that too, like recently too, with the way the market is. But I've always said I don't love real estate, like the ins and outs of it. I've done it for a while, and what I decided to do is build a team up that pretty much handles my day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So now I can do
what you want to do.
Now I'm like expanding outside of real estate, even just this podcast, right? It's not, I have a podcast that was only about real estate. Now we talk about a bunch of other cool shit, interview cool people, doing 100%. Other things. And
but I feel like we've only talked about
it only kind of, my bad,
No, it's okay, it's okay.
But that's what he does. But I think the point is, I think it's okay to not, just stay in one lane. It's, if you're at heart, I think an entrepreneur more than just real estate, you could love that vehicle. It could always be a great vehicle. You could always buy real estate. Like that never has to go away, but it's something you can pivot into other things as well.
I agree with you.
100%. Yeah, I think on that note, for sure, I think
what I want to talk about is what's this thing with JLO?
Oh yeah.
Oh, let's bring it back to that. Yeah. What specific questions you guys have about that?
I don't know. I heard some story about JLO smacking your booty or something. Yeah,
I forgot about that until Jake brought this up. So this was 2014. This was one of the it was the second music video I did. I was actually in a Paris Hilton music video before that actually no one knows about. I don't even think you can recognize me in that video, but I was living in Miami at the time, 21 years old. I got a call from my agent at 10 p.m. the night before this video shoot, and he's like, you're booked, which I didn't even do a casting for because I missed the casting, which is what you do when you get booked. It's generally you want to meet the client, you have a casting, which you do whatever they want to do. They'll take measurements, you'll walk, they'll ask you questions. I missed that, so I was like, there's no way I'm getting this job. But they called me 10 p.m. and they're like, you're booked tomorrow. Here's the address. You're gonna be on a yacht. And I don't think they even told me the artist. So I ended up Ubering to this house the next morning, and it was right on the water, Miami South Beach, probably a $15 million house. We walk through the house to the dock on this massive yacht. Like, I have to do it justice, but I don't even know. Like, it's the biggest yacht that I've personally have ever seen in Miami, and I've lived in Miami for a while. And I ended up being in a JLO music video. And I'm the one in the red Speedo if you guys wanted to watch it. But you guys will be like, I love ya, Poppy. It had like 100 million, more than that, I think now. But one of the things was like they pulled down my Speedo and they're like, this is just going to be like, it's not, we're just getting it as extra. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't, like, whatever. And it ended up being like the focal point of the video, I feel like, was like them pulling down, JLO pulling down my Speedo. And that's what everyone knows we have. Yeah.
Like a little butt crack.
So it was like it was fun because I never had done anything to
toss that film away.
Yeah, we're not going to use it. We just need it just in case. But it was like the first big production thing I've done. So it was cool in Miami on a yacht. Paparazzis were on the shoreline, like, with their huge lenses, so people had caught wind that it was JLO, and there's like some pictures of in the newspaper. Yeah, I'm sure if you type in my name in JLO, you can probably see some of the paparazzi news articles and stuff like that. But that was really cool, and she had like all of her security team. She had her choreographer, and the one thing, it was the whole cast, the casting was for dancing. I didn't know we had to dance, and I am not a dancer, so that was so difficult for me when they told me, when they played the music on the top of the yacht, and they're like, oh, you guys are just gonna chill and dance. The amount of anxiety I had. And I didn't know, because at the casting, that's what they did. They casted people that can dance, but I never went. So I'm like, these people booked the wrong person for this. And it ended up working out. The amount of short takes they took made it look like I kind of knew what I was doing. But
did you ever talk to her personally?
I talked to her, and it was so awkward. She said, I don't know, I said something so stupid to her. When she did, I just remember I was like, I can't believe I just said that. And I walked away. It was one of those interactions. I was like, this is so embarrassing. I met her again in Vegas with Guess, actually. Yeah. Behind the scenes when she did a concert, and I like brought that up to her. I was like, yeah, I was in your music video a while back, and she remembered it. She remembered me. I was like the one in the red Speedo, so that was really cool. Yeah, she did. She remembered me, and it was
the Speedo down.
Yeah. What an experience. So I mean, I was supposed to shoot 2 days for that, but I actually got booked on another job the next day, so I couldn't do the second part of the music video. Yeah. But that one day was enough for me. It was the yacht scene. It was incredible.
Yeah. Before we wrap up here, I know, because we've talked about it before, you've had other massive celebrity encounters when you were bartending back in the day.
Oh, yeah. That's something we just completely didn't talk about. I
totally forgot to talk about that. The bartending.
Yeah.
And I know you've talked to some of my favorite celebrities, Kim and Kanye.
Yep.
What were they like?
Them specifically, some of the nicest people. Like she was super sweet. They ordered a Paloma. That was the specialty of the day, and they were so freaking nice. I think a Diet Coke and a Paloma or something like that. And they were like, my memory, like the nicest couple that I've, like top 5, I would say, like nicest couple. They were so genuine. I didn't talk to them much at all. It was basically just an interaction on what drink they wanted. But the bartending is actually what brought me in front of the most celebrities ever. Like, it wasn't the modeling or anything, like, or social media. I was in Hollywood, and a lot of the people, like, in LA, I was just like head down grinding, like, as much as I could. So I'd take bartending shifts, and
it was almost like a form of modeling, though.
It was, yeah. The whole crew was just models, and that was their side stuff. It's a huge thing in these big cities, is like, oh, you're doing like acting or modeling, you're gonna get a side job, and bartending was it, because you do private events that were flexible. It's like on a yes or no basis. This time, are you available? So it wasn't like a set schedule. I wasn't working at a set venue. It was all over the place. Calabasas, specific house parties, weddings.
Palm Springs a lot.
Palm Springs. Like, I met like some of the, like I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about some of the people I met, but it was like,
you can rattle off a few names for sure.
I mean, I did Courtney's, its daughter's party at Kylie's house, so I met all of them before. I've done dinners in Calabasas with that family. I did Ellen's birthday party. I did Oprah's birthday party. I met the cast of Friends. I mean, if you name someone, I might have potential of me meeting them. I can't even, like, yeah, it was an incredible experience, and I love doing that, like, with my best friends, just going on a night out till 2 a.m. on a Friday, like, bartending.
Make pretty good money doing that.
It was yeah, I mean, it was $30 an hour and potential for tips a lot of the time. So I think one year I made like $40-something thousand just from bartending, like 2-3 days a week. But I mean, you go to Vegas and bartend. I just did a shoot with a guy who bartends 2 days a week in Vegas, $90,000. At $90,000, yeah.
Tell Dana to get that bartending job.
Wow.
Yeah, we gotta wrap this podcast up because I gotta go bartend.
Yeah.
Incredible. Like, he didn't even live in Vegas. He flew out every weekend to do it. So yeah.
Yeah. On that note, guys, I think we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you for coming by, Nick, and
thanks,
kind of
Nick. It was
breaking
fun.
down
Absolutely.
your life story, where you are now today, and where you hopefully are at in the future. So
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
yeah, of course.
100%. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, hope you
We'll
guys
catch you on the next one.
Yeah, all right.
Absolutely.
For tomorrow's podcast.